Welcome back to Media 7's Summer Editions. Who would have guessed that last year's New Year honours would have kicked off a story that would, for better or worse, dominate the political news all year? That was the gong that went to an obscure philanthropist and Labour Party donor called Owen Glenn. With us now to talk about honours and the press they generate are cartoonist Tom Scott, ONZM, and Truth Chief Reporter Jock Anderson, who's one of the rest of us. G'day, gentlemen. Now, it seems that this year's honours list is an uncontroversial one. There's no Owen Glenn lurking in there. Was that a one-off anyway?
Well, at the end of the 9 years, the Labour Party decided to give everyone they could possibly think of some sort of acknowledgement. But some of them shouldn't have been handed out. I don't think you need to give one to the Speaker or to retiring Labour MPs. You know, they were just doing their job.
Just doing their jobs, quite right.
Yeah, and it seems unnecessary.
Yeah,
I mean,
it was.
I deserve mine.
Yes, indeed. Yeah. It was hard to see what Steve Mahari had done to warrant his award, other than leave at the right time.
Yeah. No, he was a capable minister, and he left early, and you shouldn't get a prize for that.
Should we be standing in your presence, Thomas?
Well, I should tell the audience at home there's been a lot of bowing and genuflecting before the show started, and I appreciated that, Jock. He's a Scotchman and a Republican, and Her Majesty will never grace you with a medal.
And he's putting in a good word.
The best thing about getting this award, or the most humbling thing, was when you go along to get yours, all these policemen and firemen who get medals for running into burning buildings and doing peacekeeping missions, you start to feel shallower and shallower and shallower and less deserving. But when I'm surrounded by you two, I suddenly think, hey, I do deserve it again.
Deserve it.
So do you think that should be the focus for the media? All the little people who aren't in the headlines, who, you know, after a lifetime of service, have their work recognised, rather than, you know, looking at the big names?
Yes, I do. For people who do exceptional things in a quiet, low-key way, and there are people out there doing incredible things.
I know one of the recipients, a volunteer fireman, Glenn Coburn, down in rural Canterbury. And I would think that is richly deserved. I mean, he's one of these guys. He's the first in there, you know, saving people, saving your homes, saving your lives. Was
he good to you reporters?
He was indeed good. You know, he was indeed. He'd always let us know if there was a big blaze going, and you pop out and take a few snaps, and yeah.
Would he light some for you in a slow?
Oh no, definitely not. Absolutely not.
The New Zealand Herald, having broken the Owen Glenn story last year with a front page story suggesting that perhaps he'd bought himself an honour, managed to find some controversy again this year, and wrote an editorial saying we need to be free of the political taint of these awards and perhaps have an independent panel as they do in some other countries. Do you think there's a public desire for that?
Well, of course, things have moved on since they gave Glenn a sort of a slagging and then turned around and sort of gave him a bit of praise. Should there be an independent panel? Possibly not. I don't think so. I mean, I would like to see people who actually warrant awards get them. People like Tom, who slaved away his entire career. But there's a whole lot of people, in my opinion, out there who shouldn't even be getting these things. You know, they've got to be honours that matter, don't you think?
I agree. Well, I kind of think it should be more independent. A friend of mine was once the chairman of the committee which considered honours, and he said you wouldn't believe the letter writing that people organise on their own behalf. They get all of their friends to write in. Some of them even write in themselves, and they just spend hours changing your signature. And when they get offered a gong, they turn it down on the grounds that it's not good enough. And then, of course, if you turn one down, your name is taken off forever. Don't make that mistake, Russell.
I will been
holding you back so far.
I mean, it's funny you should mention that, because you look at Paul Holmes's departure from radio. I thought, well, he's a sitter for one, but of course he's already got one. So should he have kept his powder dry?
You can get a VC in bar. I mean, in Upham we should have got 4 VCs, by the way. You got a bar. You can get
to be dead for that thing.
The bar.
Yeah.
No, Upham got 2 while he was alive.
Oh, right. Okay.
And he was probably worthy of another 2.
I knew that.
Yeah, I mean, people understand that. They understand the VC and bar. Do you think the honour system we have now is well understood by the public?
Well, I'm a bit surly about the dropping of the knighthoods. Jim Bolger dropped them, and I think he regretted it 10 minutes later when he realised he wouldn't be Sir James. Yeah, and so I would have... You just talk amongst yourselves. I would have been a knight under the old system, I believe. You'd be sitting here with Sir Thomas.
Have we got a tissue for this man?
Yeah.
We would have to stand there, Tom. Yeah, I think we definitely need to have knights and dames back. Yeah, always a great believer in that. I'm not exactly what you would call a monarchist, and I haven't got a great deal of time, quite frankly, for the English monarchy, but while we're still a constitutional monarchy, I think it'd be nice to have people called Sir and Dame. It's an acknowledgement all over the world. We know exactly who these people are, and they've done something. And yeah, good on them. You know.
Bob Jones likes being Sir Robert. You know, you get upgrades on aircraft and better tables
You're always
in
going to
restaurants.
get that seat at the restaurant, aren't you?
Yeah, and though Ed Hillary was grumpy as hell when he got his knighthood. He was furious. George Lowe read the envelope out to him and said, "Oh, Ed, they've given you a knighthood." And Ed was really grumpy because he said, "I'll have to go and buy a new pair of strides," and that was his main objection. But Sir someone and Dame someone, it adds a little colour.
I think it does.
To a dinner party.
Absolutely, it does. Yeah.
Well,
and the sooner they're back, then you get back up the pecking
It's
order.
too late for me now. But
it's not
I'm thinking of you and Russell.
Yeah, that's very kind.
Would you
of
be
Tom.
Russell, Sir Russell, just Sir Russell?
I think I'd go for the Sir Russell. Yeah.
And the thing I liked was when they go around the garden on New Year's Day. You know, the family, when you get a gong, you walk around the garden with your wife and you point blindly and blankly at bits of flowers and stuff, and then you go and say, "It's not just for me. It's for
me.
It's for proctology everywhere."
Yes, and I had no idea it was happening.
Well, because the other suggestion, apart from the Sirs and Dames, which National is indicating it might bring back, is some sort of branding that's a bit more indigenous. So perhaps, as well as being an ONZM, Tom, you could be a Tui, and then the officers could be a Kia.
We had that.
What about the Pakekos?
We had that in primary school. We were divided up into class groups, tuies and geckos and skinks and things, and I didn't like it much.
What were you?
Oh, I can't remember now. But when we did play junior rugby, I did get into the All Blacks. I feel really great about that. I did play briefly in the All Blacks from the age of 5 to 7, and that felt good.
I don't know quite what to say about that. Actually, was there anyone else
I
in
knew
this
we should
list
have stood up for this.
that stood out for you? It seemed a bit light on captains of industry, but on the other hand, you had the likes of Oscar Kitely in there, which was, that's an interesting one. He's still a young man.
He's still a young man. He's everyone's favourite brown person at the moment. I think Dave Farnay, the other guy in the Naked Samoans, is who's much more ribald and probably the better writer. But he'd never accept one. But Oscar is the friendly face of Polynesia, New Zealand, and a clever man and a very funny man. But New Zealand, we want to embrace Polynesia at the moment, which is long overdue. So,
well, it took so long before we even had a Samoan on the television, and then all of a sudden we have these people high achieving. Well, what do you think? We're traditionally supposed to be an egalitarian society, and Jack's as good as his master. What do you think rank and file New Zealanders think about the honours system? Do they value it?
I think they do, and I think you'll see that that people do value it. I think people like to have some kind of a recognition. It doesn't necessarily mean to say that you're better than someone or that you're further up the social scale, but it is a recognition, and call me old-fashioned if you like, but I just like the idea. I like the idea.
But I mean, on the other hand, Jock, you've spent your career getting up people's noses.
Exactly.
Would recognition
so my chances of recognition
would recognition mean that you'd finally lost your edge?
You've left me speechless. There is still hope. There is still hope out there. I would not expect to be recognised, not even by this government, as a well-known right-wing journo. But maybe there'll be a time somewhere where we get a recognition. I wouldn't want it very much. A life peerage, something modest.
with a castle.
Castle, a small castle.
Small castle.
Well, hopefully there'll be a day when you and I will be able to get restaurant seats like Tom
and
can.
You'll have to stand up in our presence.
If you get one of these, Russell, it will completely devalue mine. This will be on eBay the minute you've got yours.
Well, on that note, Jock Anderson and Tom Scott, thank you for joining us. And that ends this summer edition of Media 7. Thanks to our guests, Alison Harley, Tom Scott and Jock Anderson, and thank you for staying with us. We'll be back from the winery next week. Until then, goodbye.